Hi there. Welcome to Game of Our Own, a podcast about women who work in sports. I'm your host, Jahaan. I bring you stories of women who are game changers, incredible leaders, and trailblazers in the sports industry. You will get a behind-the-scenes look of how they navigated their journey, valuable lessons they learned along the way, and advice for high-achieving women just like you. I'm excited you're here. Let's do this. As I'm recording this, we're about 4 months into a global pandemic that has wreaked havoc on our way of life. It is no secret that COVID-19 has taken a toll on the sports industry. Yes, I know COVID has impacted more than just the sports industry, but right now I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about your careers and the career you aspire to have in the sports and entertainment industry. I'm thinking about all of the uncertainty you're feeling, like not sure what your role is going to be in this new way of operating. Not sure if your season's going to happen, or in some cases, your season's already been canceled. I'm thinking of those of you who have been laid off, fired, or furloughed. I'm thinking of those of you who had to do the laying off, firing, and furloughing. None of this is easy. We are certainly being tested. Our mind, body, and spirit are being tested. I know some days are easier than others. I know that you're out there being positive, leading with courage, and not letting all the things that are going on right now bring you down. I see you out there. I also know we're human, and what's going on in the world can really create mindset issues. That's why I invited my next guest to join me. Libby Rapin is a mindfulness and meditation coach. She sits down with me and generously shares strategies on how to ensure we are operating at our most optimal state. Libby talks about the power of our thoughts and how they can cause stress. More importantly, she talks about how that impacts the body. Now, I know that we all know stress isn't good for us and it's not good for the body. What I love about my conversation with Libby is she breaks it down in an easy way to understand what stress is actually doing to our body. She's also kind enough to share some of her personal experiences to help us understand how practicing mindfulness can impact our lives in a powerful way. I hope you enjoy. Libby, welcome to Game of Her Own podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's so awesome to chat with you.
I know, I'm like smiling. No one can see me, but I'm like smiling from ear to ear. Like, this is an exciting topic and I'm excited to like dive deep into it. But before we get into it, why don't you give the listeners a little bit about who you are and your background?
So I spent about 10 years in corporate America working for technology startups, primarily in human resources. And the long and short of my story is that I got into the work hard, play hard mentality. So working crazy hours, striving to work my way up the corporate ladder. And eventually I just burnt myself out, Jahaan. It was like an intense exhaustion. And then that led to feeling very anxious. I had a racing mind all the time. I couldn't really sleep. I started to develop brain fog. So I was forgetting how to do things or forgetting just like to follow through on certain tasks, especially in my job, which was giving me the most stress. And then I was labeled with things like Hashimoto's, different autoimmune diseases, leaky gut, IBS. Honestly, it was like, it depended on which doctor I was seeing at the time. And so I decided to approach my health more holistically. I've always been somebody that wanted to use natural approaches to my healing. And so I just synchronistically found mindfulness and meditation. I was doing yoga, but I was doing like workout yoga, not to like really connect with the self. Really had no idea what that even meant. And so I started studying the mind-body connection and understanding how stress and emotions impact our physical health and how that actually works. And then that led to applying these techniques in my own life. I was in human resources, like I mentioned, and I realized there was a huge opportunity for me to share what I was learning with my employees in the startup world. So I became more aware of what was going on, and I realized, like, holy crap, there's so many people that are in my shoes. And the more I became more comfortable and vulnerable and sharing my story, people were like, me too. And so this then led me to following this calling to find ways to bring positive psychology and mindfulness into the workplace, to help people thrive, to help cultivate leadership skills by focusing on well-being. And so that's primarily what I do now. I do mindset coaching, I say I have like the best job. I do so many fun things, but those are the two primary things that I do.
So mindfulness and meditation are the two primary things you do.
I meant more like building workplace programs to help people develop the like skills to help them thrive and to experience well-being. But two tools that I use to help them do that are mindfulness, and then meditation is a form of mindfulness. So yeah.
I love all those things. And it's funny, I was prepping for this interview and I felt like, ooh, I am out of my area of expertise. There's so much here. And I've heard you talk about this stuff before. I've heard others talk about it, and I know how important it is. And that's why I really wanted to interview you, is because, gosh, right now is such a difficult time. It's a difficult time for everybody, right? But I'm also thinking about my clients who are in the sports and entertainment industry. I'm thinking about women in sports and what they're going through, right? So I keep thinking, okay, people are getting laid off, fired, furloughed, use whatever word you want to, right? There's people who are at the top having to make these decisions, and I know they are not taking them lightly. It is really, really hard on them. What made me want to come to you was, what could we do? What tangible items? And I say we because I'm there too, but with all this fear of the unknown and this uncertainty and these variables that we have no control over, what are some tangible things that we can be doing to help with managing it all?
Well, there's so much. So I think one thing we should probably do is step back and talk about what is mindfulness. So mindfulness for me is one of the simple and most effective tools that people can apply to their life and to begin seeing results very quickly. It's different for everyone, but very quickly, because there's this stereotype and preconceived notion on what is mindfulness. Like, I hear it's good for me, but I think it means I'm sitting in lotus position with my hands in a mudra, oming. Like, that's what people think. It's like, it's this picture of, a Buddhist, and they're in these beautiful garbs, and, that's true, right? So that's where these ancient techniques do stem from. But mindfulness is a way of being. It's paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And it's so important for us to understand that this is a way of being, because right now, before we jumped on this call, I was reading a report that just came out by Qualtrics, that is some of the first data that I'm starting to see from a reputable source since COVID happened. The data is starting to come out on how the pandemic is impacting us from a mental health perspective. But the reality is that before this even happened, 2 in 5 US adults were feeling lonely. 80% of people feel that work is a significant source of stress. And from this same study, 50% of the respondents said, I don't even know how to handle stress. I need help, essentially. Mm-hmm. And anxiety levels are at an all-time high. 1 in 5 US adults is suffering some type of mental health condition, suffering from a mental health condition. And so just imagine this all being amplified. So what's happening is that we're feeling this sense of loneliness. We're feeling stress. We're working from home. We are taking care of the kids. We have fears about finances. We have fears about getting sick. And so what's happening is that we're totally getting pulled out of this present moment awareness. Mm-hmm. So we're stuck in trying to figure out and plan for, what is this future going to look like? The reality is, Jahaan, is that nobody has a freaking clue. We've never been through this. Mm-hmm. So we're spending all of this time trying to plan for the future. And we have all of these fears about the what ifs. What if this happens? So we're trying to create these perfect plans to prevent these terrible things from happening. So we're catastrophizing in our head. And or we're stuck in the, I want to go back to the way that things were. Or, we're ruminating on how somebody was super short with us and we can't stop thinking about it. And now we have this weird energy between us, and it's like creating communication issues. And so we ruminate on the past. But what's so important right now more than ever is for us to be in this present moment awareness, fully embodying each experience without judgment, not labeling as good or bad, because we're so quick to do that. So one of the best things that we can give ourselves right now is stillness. And so when we think about how do we cultivate stillness in our lives, there's so many ways that we can do that.
So stillness. Right now, it is so hard to stay still. So hard. And when I don't know about others who are listening, but when I am still, when I'm just like, it's usually at the end of the day, usually right when I'm about to go to bed is when my mind goes on overdrive, right? As soon as I become still is when it becomes so intense, right? Everything just kind of comes flooding in. How do you do that? I know that you're good at it. How do you do that?
So there are days when I'm good and there's days when I'm not. So this is the power of the practice. So, even as a coach and a teacher of this, I'm not perfect. Life is a journey and different experiences leave different imprints. So the one thing that we need to remember is literally a ginormous stop sign. S-T-O-P, stop. So when we start to feel anxiety, we start to feel worn out, we start to feel intense sadness arising, the best thing we can do is literally just stop. So you stop what you're doing. So you stop talking, you stop creating, you stop typing, and you take 3 deep breaths. So this is the T and stop as an acronym. So you stop, you take 3 deep breaths, you observe what's going on without labeling, non-judgmentally. You're like, okay, I just got triggered. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling sad because this just happened. You just observe it and then you proceed. And when we can just kind of let experiences and thoughts and emotions just float on by and not get caught up in them, I'm not saying that we don't do anything about it because I'm huge about exploring that, but not in every moment do we have time to do that. So the best way to experience stillness is literally just to stop. But most of us are hardwired to be on autopilot in our lives. So we don't. We become robots. We don't stop and we don't think. We don't think about why we do certain things. I even think of it as simple patterns in my life. I put my makeup on the same way every day, the same order. I never mix that up. That's the same thing with habits in our life. We just do them over and over and over that we don't think. And in order for us to experience well-being during a time of a pandemic, the best thing that we can do is disrupt our thought patterns because they become habitual ways of thinking. So if every day at 3:00, so I think it's 3:00 every day in Michigan when the coronavirus numbers are released. If I go on every day at 3, what's that probably going to do? My body's probably going to go into fight or flight at this point. Right now, there are still certain areas where numbers are increasing. And that creates anxiety. But what if I could stop and say, okay, you know what? I'm realizing now that every time at 3:00 every day, I become really upset and angry. Why is that? Maybe it's because I'm checking the corona numbers and it's reminding me of the fear that I have around getting sick. Okay, so today I'm not going to do that. I'm going to see how I feel. And so it's disrupting the thought pattern on purpose, intention.
So stopping and just getting curious to what emotion or what you're feeling at that time. Did I get that right?
Curiosity is so ridiculously important. Without judgment, you just want to say, oh my gosh, why is anger coming up? Have you seen Inside Out, the Disney movie?
I have not.
Oh my gosh, you need to watch it. Girl, it is so cute. And the way that they take emotions like anger, it's like anger, joy, sadness. I don't remember what else, but it's basically these characters that are emotions inside this little girl's head. And so they have all of these different marbles that store experiences. And it's a great depiction of what goes on in the mind and like all the voices that you hear. It's beautiful. So I got off topic, but that's what that movie made me think of your question. No,
that's good because all of us need new recommendations of what to watch. So that's a good one. I will link to it in the show notes. I like it. Okay. So stop. I understand. And getting curious, but without judgment. You're just talking about the judgment on yourself. Is that what you're saying? How you judge yourself?
Totally. It could totally be judgment of the self. We're our own worst critic, but it's also judging experiences are good or bad. So a lot of people right now, let's just use the pandemic. Wow, this is such a crappy situation that we're in right now. Like, this is so horrible. So we're judging that as bad versus saying, you know what, there's so much beauty coming from this experience. I know people are suffering, but look at how we're coming together to support each other, strangers, random strangers supporting other people. And so it's all about where the mind goes. We are so quick to judge and to label. And that's not really, mindfulness is paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. That's the key word. So we go into fight or flight 8 to 14 times a day. And why does the body go into fight or flight? It goes into fight or flight to protect us. You and I are not facing even a minimum of 8 life or death situations every day where we're getting chased, say, by like a wild animal. So then we ask ourselves, how does the body go into fight or flight? Well, it's because of our thoughts. So the rumination on the future and the rumination on the past creates stress in the body. The body, when you replay an experience of trauma, the body knows no different. You're playing that in your head and it thinks that's happening. It doesn't know that it's not. So it doesn't say you can only release stress hormones when things are happening in this reality of what we think of being awake versus replaying the reality of a story in our mind, because we all do that. Mm-hmm. And so this is why it's so important for us to stop and experience stillness and to become aware of our thoughts, because our thoughts are sending us into fight or flight.
8 to 10 times a day that happens.
8 to 14 times a day, research is telling us, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And I would say, like, so think about that. That's at least once an hour when we're awake. So if you wake up at 7, okay, yeah, if you go to bed at 10, you're basically at the top end of that potentially. But that's so true. I mean, even a little trigger of frustration, like, I don't miss this because when I was living in Chicago, like all the horns honking, like literally think it's like when a driver gets irate because somebody doesn't slam on the gas right when the light turns green, the horns go off. Mm-hmm. That adrenaline that person is releasing in their response of anger is sending the body into fight or flight. So the benefit of stillness then in our lives is that every time we experience stillness, or what we refer to as restful awareness, the body gets to return to homeostasis. And homeostasis is when we're at our best. It's when we feel vibrant. And so we need more experiences that bring us calmness in our life to really, honestly, at this point, refresh the body from all the times it's like going into this state of fight or flight. Because what happens is that, I mean, think about it. What happens to you when you get stressed? How does your body react?
I mean, not in a good way. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, all the things, the headaches, I feel tired. Right?
Yes. Yes.
I'm not in a good mood. Ask my husband.
Yeah. So we sweat, our blood pressure goes up. You know, some people get flush in the face. And so what's happening is that the body, this is an amazing response. We want the body to do this because it's protecting us. But then what happens is that the digestion gets all messed up. You know, the body is going into conserve mode, protect mode. So the body, when it needs to be operating at its most optimal state, it can't function. These acute responses of, you know, just like getting the flu or getting a migraine become chronic. Mm-hmm. And this is how disease ends up manifesting. Dis-ease creates disease.
Say that one more time.
Dis-ease leads to disease. And this is what more and more research is coming up to tell us, which is why now when people teach about well-being, they don't just talk about how important it is to drink water, eat nutritious foods, and get movement. So I sent you an article recently about the University of Wisconsin, how they hired a director of mindfulness for their athletics. Mm-hmm. So teams get this. You know, major athletes are using creative visualization. They're using breathing techniques. They're using mindset tools. They've been using them for decades. When we think about how does mindfulness fit into, like, especially people within the sports industry, think of the pressure on an athlete when they walk up to bat. Like the crowd's cheering, like, you know, there's so much pressure. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. You know, how do they then control the mind in order to get them in this present moment awareness to help them perform? And so this is what this is about. This is all about how do we show up to thrive in life. We want to thrive in life, but we're accepting less because that's how we've been conditioned. Being sick is normal. That's what we've told ourselves. But I do not believe that is our birthright. Our birthright is to experience vibrant health. And part of that is like how we control our thoughts and how we nourish the body and fill us up.
This is really helpful. And this is something, you know, the stop to practice stillness. Am I saying that right? Am I using your words right?
Remember stop. Yeah.
Perfect. So I think that's something, like you said, the powers in the practice. So what else could we be practicing? I like that one. So say I get that down for a couple of weeks and I'm feeling good and I'm like, I need something else from Libby. Is there other things that you would recommend?
I am trained in a specific type of meditation technique. Meditation is one of the first tools that I use that, I kid you not, Jahaan, it was a game changer in my life. So everybody should be meditating. And science is showing us that, like, even 3 minutes a day, that's all we need to see something. Of course, I believe that you should be doing 30 minutes twice a day, because I have seen people that have done this that see major shifts in their life very quickly. So it's about making time for it. But okay, so that's a sitting practice. So most people are like, Libby, I don't have an hour in my day to meditate. And again, before we move on, there's so many apps out there to get guided meditation. So Headspace is a big one. They're actually right now giving it to people for free that are unemployed. Insight Timer, I love. Breathe, Calm. Deepak Chopra and Oprah have an app called the 21-Day Meditation Experience, which is free. So all those are great. You can go on YouTube, you can find meditations of all different lengths. Just know you need less than 5 minutes a day to see enhancement. So try it a couple times a week. So then people are like, okay, Libby, like I don't have time for a seated meditation practice. So let's talk about how can we add mindfulness into our day so we get to be fun and creative. So let's think about how our morning starts. We take a shower. You can literally practice meditation in the shower by, for a couple of moments, just fully embodying the experience of the water landing on your body. Imagining it hitting your head and how it, falls down your body, maybe the warmth, the texture, the sounds. What we're doing is we're breaking up the habitual thought patterns of this rumination when we're staying focused on one thing. You can practice mindful toothbrushing, which I use all the time as an example. It's so silly, but I am somebody that when I brush my teeth, I walk around. I'm organizing, I'm getting my hot water started, so I'm multitasking. So I am not present in that moment. So I try to literally train myself to stand in front of the sink and brush my teeth. So that could be mindfulness because I'm focusing again on one thing and I'm fully present in that experience. You can practice mindfulness when you eat. So I am still guilty of this. I eat while I'm driving. I eat in front of my computer. So there is still opportunity for growth for me in this space of mindful eating. But think about how many times we eat and we don't really savor the taste and the textures and the aromas of the food. Even just taking a 10-minute break over lunch and while you're eating, maybe even closing your eyes, putting your phone to the side, no music, just really taking in the full experience of enjoying your food. So I could keep going on. I mean, you could practice mindfulness when you're making your bed. People, so many people in Michigan especially, are getting out on the trails and going for mindful walks with family, riding bikes, whatever, getting out in nature, listening to the waves. You can do that for anybody in Chicago, on the lake. There's so many ways to practice mindfulness and to add it into your day without making it feel like it's something extra to do. I, of course, personally believe you need a seated meditation practice. That's my own personal belief, but it's not the only way.
I like that. And I like the practicing mindfulness throughout the day, right? Even just starting with something as simple as just being present in the shower. I took a shower today, I promise everybody, but I don't remember the shower.
Yeah.
I most certainly don't.
I have tons of reminders in my phone. So when they go off, it's not typically because I'm getting a text message. It's because I have a reminder that says, bring the joy, tell yourself you're beautiful, take a break, drink some water. And I change them based on whatever I'm focusing on in that moment. So right now it's about a lot of positive self-talk. So if you were to look at my phone, there's 10 reminders in there that go off usually on the top of the hour that are little reminders. And when those reminders go off, that breaks up my thought pattern. Now, sometimes they can act as distractions. So you have to be strategic about when you do them. But phone reminders are an amazing way to remind us to embody these things. At the end of the night, you plug your phone in, you just sit in bed and you think of 5 things that you're grateful for. That's mindfulness. It's one of the best ways to end your night. Reflect. Did I show up today in a way that was very kind and compassionate? How could I be a better human? How could I impact people's lives? How could I live out my purpose? And just reflect. We don't even slow down to evaluate our own lives. Am I showing up for my loved ones in the most healthy and loving way? Or am I just ignoring my partner? Am I ignoring my kids?
Yeah.
So there's so many ways, so many ways. We just don't have enough time to talk about all of them in one episode.
I know, right? Okay. One thing I do is I've gotten away from it and I try to do it at least once or twice a week, but I write down what I'm grateful for. It used to be a daily practice in the morning. Now, I do it when I can. I notice the difference in my day, right? If I'm in a bad mood, it definitely snaps me out of it. It puts me in a good mood. I come from a place of gratitude for the rest of the day, right? It reminds me of like, the things that matter most to me. So as, somebody who's in the sports industry dealing with all the things I talked about in the beginning, if they start practicing mindfulness, what can they expect as a result of it?
So I'll just share in my experience what the changes that I've seen, and this is different for everyone on how they feel. I think some of the major benefits that I saw early on were that all of a sudden I was sleeping through the night. So whereas I used to wake up and write down the things that were on my mind, my to-do list, I started sleeping well. So that was a major benefit. I woke up feeling more rested. I had a more calm mind. Even still now today, like I don't overanalyze. I'm just very calm about things, and I'm calm when it comes to decisions. I'm able to problem solve more quickly because I don't get stuck up in my head a lot. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm tuning into my heart and the voices, and I'm stopping and I'm reflecting a lot. And that has been a major change in my life as somebody that literally used to run into the office. I would run to get everywhere. And now the answers come to me when I'm in stillness. So that's a huge benefit. I'm much more resilient in my life. When I'm faced with challenges and setbacks, I bounce back very quickly. My amounts of joy and happiness that I experience now, more from like what would be considered maybe mundane experiences, I've learned to savor moments, and that in turn has just brought me so much more joy and happiness. I also think that like creatively, meditation has opened up a new pathway for me. So like now it's like there's no shortage of ideas where, previously when I had brain fog, it was like I couldn't think. So it's just because I'm not worried and my mind is not cluttered with all of these what ifs, they're still there. Don't get me wrong. I'm human. We're all human. They'll always be there. But it's how I respond to them. Do I give them attention? And I think I'm much more compassionate and empathetic and understanding to other people's situations because of my journey, because of the people I've met on my journey, and understanding their stories now. And so it has made me more compassionate and empathetic in the way that I connect with people through communication is like, honestly, tenfold. So I used to be somebody who listened to respond. I would like not even honestly be listening because I'm on my phone or I'm completely distracted. And now I actually know what it means to like practice deep listening, to ask appreciative questions, to get people to really tell me about themselves. So I connect with people and my relationships are much more meaningful. That was a long-winded answer. And I could honestly, my mind has more things that are coming to mind, but I think that's enough there where it should be enough that you just want to feel more joy and happiness. And I don't need to see the research anymore to know that this stuff works. Mm-hmm. I would challenge every listener that's listening to this, starting today for the next 7 days, meditate for 5 minutes. That's it. Just 5 minutes and like, see how you feel. And if that doesn't work or a certain style of meditation doesn't work, go to another one. There's thousands of ways that you can practice meditation and mindfulness. Part of my goal is to equip people with a toolkit so that they know in different moments what they might need. So sometimes I'm stuck in a downward spiral and I need an exercise to get me out of catastrophizing. Sometimes I'm just sad. So I need to go to my jolts of joy and say, okay, like what can I bring that could bring me joy in less than 1 minute? So I have all these different things and I just kind of ask myself, what do you need? Mm-hmm. And I go to that. So even the way that I approach my own practices shifts and evolves. And that's why like this is a lifelong commitment to a way of being. You can't eat one piece of broccoli and expect to be healthy the rest of your life, right? You keep feeding yourself healthy fruits and veggies and, liquids like water. Same with mindfulness. It's our mental gym. We have to keep doing it.
Ooh, I like it. Mental gym. Like I understand that now. Okay. Got it. Good. Okay. So what else would you like to share with us in our short time? So we talked about stop. We talked about meditation, practicing daily mindfulness, I should say, throughout the day. What else would you like to share that you think would impact the women in the sports industry?
I think my message is this, that like it's in the feminine energy to be caregivers and to want to keep giving. giving to others. And I think more than ever right now, if you are tuning in to this podcast, this is your invitation for self-care. This is your nudge to take care of yourself, because you cannot give to anybody else unless you fill yourself up. A lot of women think that caring for themselves is selfish. And I say, you know what? Selfish, the way that we perceive the word selfish is also different based on the person. But for me, in my experience, compassion fatigue is a real thing. And we need to care for ourselves. So show ourselves compassion, show ourselves the love, fill ourselves up, because when we do that and we give ourselves this nourishment, it gives other people permission to do the same. So mindfulness has a multiplier effect. People saw the changes in me before I realized them in myself. And they said, what are you doing? I want that. I want to live like you. How do I do that? And so that was their invitation to go on the journey. So by releasing, I always say, releasing my light, other people are now doing that. And that's a beautiful thing. So a lot of times we say, Jahaan needs to fix that, Libby needs to fix that, and we don't want to take responsibility for anything. But that's the only thing we have control over is ourselves. Uh-huh. So the moment I started shifting my energy and doing the work on myself, the people that I was surrounded by were people that were doing the same thing. Right now, more than ever, the most important thing you can do for yourself is to give yourself time for self-care and to work it into your day. I think that's my most important takeaway right now, is because the numbers are very scary on the increase in stress and anxiety and loneliness that people are feeling nowadays. So getting such simple tools like this into people's hands is important. But what's even more important is that people don't just listen to a podcast and that's it. You have to take what we talk about and put it into practice. It's the only way you will see change. You can't just sit there and smile. You have to take an action to do something that makes you smile.
I agree. And this is a perfect segue. So, right, you can't just listen to this and be like, okay, good to go. I feel better now. Right? Because your words are encouraging. If someone wanted to explore any of these techniques or things that you hit on further, how can they get in touch with you?
So I have a website. I have two websites, actually. So my personal website where I do coaching and keynote speaking is somethingbeautiful.co. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram. It's like the @ and then it is something beautiful. So the it is goes before something beautiful. And then my company right now, which is going through a rebranding, that's more focused on the workplace and how to bring these things into the workplace, is called Oh Infinite Love. To get in touch with us there, our email is ohinfinitelove@gmail.com. And then we're on social media platforms as Oh Infinite Love. No need to go to our website because that's all there's nothing there because we're going through a rebranding, but those are the ways. And then my email is libby@somethingbeautiful.co.
Ooh, perfect. Thank you so much for being a guest. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. I would love to stay connected with you. You can follow me on Instagram @JahaanBlake, and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. If you're interested in learning more about how I can support you in your journey in the sports industry, email me at jblake@thejblakegroup.com or send me a DM on Instagram. I look forward to hearing from you.